Good people are idiots? How? The whole idea of good people being dismissed or even ridiculed as idiots is at the core of Fyodor Dostoevsky's novel, The Idiot. This wasn't just a random thought Dostoevsky had. This came from his own struggles in life. He poured his experiences, his suffering, and even his reflections on morality into this book. At its heart, the novel is an antidote to the pain caused by too much consciousness, this constant awareness of human suffering, and the impossible task of staying truly good in a flawed world. But it's not just about goodness. Dostoevsky cracks open the door and shows us the ugly truth about the real world, how greed, selfishness, and the misuse of free will shape society. And he's not just criticizing society, he's asking us why. Why do people make these choices? What's driving this chaos? I'll discuss all of that in this video, but first, to really understand what Dostoevsky's trying to say, we've got to look at the characters and the chaos they bring. The Idiot kicks off on a train. Prince Mishkin, the male protagonist, is on his way back to Russia after years in a Swiss sanatorium because he has epilepsy, just like Dostoevsky. On the train, he meets two guys who basically represent everything he isn't. First, there's Parfen Rogozhin. This guy just inherited a ton of cash, and he's going on about how obsessed he is with this woman, Nastasia Filipovna. Then there's Lebedev, who's self-centered, sneaky, and not above stirring the pot for his own benefit. When Mishkin gets to St. Petersburg, he visits General Yapanchin, a distant relative. That's where he meets Aglaya, the youngest daughter. She's smart, gorgeous, and immediately intrigued by Mishkin. But then we get to Nastasia Filipovna. Her life is a mess. She was groomed by this rich creep Tatsky, who now wants to get rid of her by marrying her off to Ganya, a guy who only cares about climbing the social ladder. Nastasia, on the other hand, doesn't have any interest in it. In a party, Rogozhin, Mishkin, Nastasia, Ganya, the whole circus was there. Rogozhin throws out this insane offer, 100,000 rubles for Nastasia. Basically, I'll buy your love. And Nastasia, being the wild card she is, picks up the cash and chucks it at Ganya, calling him out for being a greedy sellout. Meanwhile, Mishkin stands up and does what only Mishkin would do. He says he loves her and wants to marry her. No strings, no judgment, just love. But Nastasia can't deal with that kind of sincerity. Instead of staying, she runs off with Rogozhin. Now, here's where Mishkin's goodness really shines, and where it starts to ruin him. His relatives find out about his inheritance and start circling like vultures, but instead of telling them off, he offers to help them financially. Months pass, and Aglaya starts showing up more in Mishkin's life. She likes him, but she also kind of hates him for how good he is. She can't understand why he keeps helping people who treat him terribly. Society's garbage, and Mishkin just keeps sweeping it up. She's drawn to him, but his heart is still with Nastasia. Eventually, there's this big, awkward showdown. Mishkin, Aglaya, and Nastasia all end up in the same room. Aglaya is furious when she sees Mishkin siding with Nastasia, and she storms out. That's the end of whatever could have happened between her and Mishkin. Then, Mishkin and Nastasia decide to marry. But on the wedding day, Nastasia panics. She feels unworthy of Mishkin's love and runs off with Rogozhin again. Rogozhin takes her to another city, and his jealousy finally boils over to a point where he kills her. Rogozhin is sitting there with her body, a complete wreck, and what does Mishkin do? He sits next to him, comforts him, and wipes his tears. This is the same guy who tried to kill Mishkin earlier in the story, but Mishkin doesn't hold grudges. He forgave Rogozhin before, and he forgives him now. By the end, Mishkin is completely broken. The world has chewed him up and spit him out. He ends up back in the sanatorium, and everyone else is left to deal with the mess they've made. Dostoevsky's basically saying, here's what happens when you put someone truly good in a society that's anything but. It's raw, it's brutal, and it sticks with you. Now let's learn what Dostoevsky is trying to teach us. Are morally good people fool. There's a lot you can take away from The Idiot, and I'm sure everyone's going to have their own opinions on it. But for me, the first thing that really hit was the whole idea that being too good can actually ruin you. Dostoevsky created Prince Mishkin as this pure, Christ-like figure, a holy fool, as they'd call him. The guy is all kindness, no malice. Although, that kind of goodness doesn't get you far in the real world. Mishkin's life is just one big series of people walking all over him. His relatives try to screw him out of his inheritance. Rogozhin literally attempts to kill him, and yet Mishkin forgives them all, every single time. And while that's noble, it's also the reason Aglaya, one of the love interests, calls him an idiot. She wanted a man who had some spine, someone who wouldn't just let people treat him like a doormat. And Mishkin, he's not that guy. Aglaya's family wasn't too impressed with him either. They wanted someone who could take a stand, someone who wasn't just floating through life, forgiving everyone and turning the other cheek. Mishkin didn't fit the mold. At one point, he even offers to marry Nastasia Filipovna. Not because he loves her, but because he wants to save her from herself. I mean, that's kindness on a level most of us can't even comprehend. But it's also exactly why society can't handle him. He's too pure, too good. And some people even start getting suspicious. They think, no one's this nice. He must be up to something. And honestly, I kind of get it. This level of kindness doesn't work in real life. You can't be the person who sits with a murderer like Rogozhin, wiping their tears, and expect the world not to chew you up. Especially now, in modern times, where being clever isn't just a skill, it's survival. I'm not saying you need to be manipulative or ruthless, but you've got to be smart about who you trust and where you draw the line. It's that whole nice guys finish last thing. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for kindness, empathy, and being a decent human being. But there's got to be a limit. Being nice doesn't mean you let people use you. You can, and sometimes should, be harsh when the situation calls for it. Otherwise, people will just take advantage of you. That's how humans work. This idea actually reminds me of Machiavelli and Nietzsche's critiques of Socratic philosophy. They both argued against the whole reason above all approach, saying humans should rely on instincts more, like pre-Socratic Athenians. Now, I'm not fully on board with Nietzsche's philosophy. He's a bit too extreme for me, but he makes a point. There has to be a balance: rational thinking, kindness, instincts, sometimes harshness. Life throws a lot at you, and you need all those tools to navigate it. And that's what Dostoevsky captures so well in The Idiot. Life is messy, complicated, and full of suffering, but it's also beautiful in its chaos. The ups and downs, the unpredictability of human emotions and actions are what make life both painful and poignant. Which brings us to the next chapter of this video. Living in constant uncertainty. One other fascinating thing about The Idiot is how everyone in it is just a walking contradiction. No one knows what they want, they can't stick to a decision, and their emotional flip-flopping is the fuel for all the chaos. Take Mishkin, for example, our so-called hero. He's so good-hearted that it's actually a problem. The guy can't make a decision to save his life. He's in this weird limbo between Nastasia Filipovna and Aglaya, and he's not leading them on. It's just that he feels bad for literally everyone. And while that's nice in theory, in practice, it's a disaster. Then there's Nastasia. She is chaos personified. 1 minute, she's rejecting Mishkin's love because she thinks she's too damaged for him. The next, she's running off with Rogozhin, the human embodiment of a red flag. She'll throw money into a fire, call everyone out, and then do something that makes no sense at all. And Aglaya? She's like that one friend who secretly likes you, but spends all their time roasting you. She mocks Mishkin for being too good, but you can tell she's into him, except when she's not. Or maybe she is? Who knows? Because every interaction with her is like playing emotional roulette. And then there's Rogozhin. The guy's entire personality is based on how much he loves Nastasia. And by love, I mean he's one bad day away from doing something crazy, which he does. He worships her, but he also can't stand the idea of anyone else having her. And eventually he killed her. But here's the thing. Dostoevsky doesn't make these characters inconsistent for no reason. Their erratic behavior is the point. It's a mirror to real life, how people can be unpredictable, selfish, or just plain messy. They're constantly torn between what they want, what society expects of them, and their own messed up heads. It's frustrating, sure, but it's also what makes the story feel so real. You don't get neat little character arcs where everyone learns a valuable lesson. What you get is human nature in all its chaotic, self-destructive glory. So yeah, the flip-flopping isn't just a quirk. It's Dostoevsky throwing his hands up and saying, "This is life, folks. Good luck making sense of it." Dostoevsky has presented a realistic life, which I'll be discussing now. Realistic life and free will. What I love most about The Idiot is how brutally honest it is about life. Dostoevsky doesn't sugarcoat anything. Life's full of suffering and nobody escapes it, not even the rich. Rogojin is rolling in cash, but is he happy? Not even close. The guy is drowning in obsession, jealousy, and inner turmoil. Money's supposed to solve problems, right? Well, Dostoevsky's over here reminding us that it doesn't buy peace of mind. Then there's Nastasia Filipovna. Her life is basically one long train wreck, and you can't look away. She hates herself so much that she constantly throws herself at destruction. And let's talk about greed. Almost every character in this book is chasing something. Money, power, status, like it's the only thing keeping them alive. Mishkin, the one genuinely good guy, walks into this mess thinking he can fix it, but society just chews him up and spits him out. People see his kindness as weakness. They take advantage of him, mock him, and use him until there's nothing left of him. It's heartbreaking, but it's also so real. The world doesn't know what to do with someone like Mishkin because he's not playing the same game everyone else is, although he did deserve some of it. Then there's Ippolit. This guy's just a kid, dying of tuberculosis, and the weight of it all, his illness, his lack of purpose, the futility of everything, pushes him to the edge. He tries to take his own life in front of everyone, and it's one of the most gut-wrenching moments in the book. Dostoevsky doesn't shy away from showing how deep depression runs and how helpless it can make a person feel. What really hits me, though, is how everyone's free will seems tied to things like money, fame, or power. It's like Dostoevsky is saying, "You think you're making choices? Nah, you're just following the script society wrote for you." People like Rogojin and Nastasia are trapped by their passions and pasts, while others are straight-up slaves to greed. Mishkin tries to rise above it, but even he gets dragged down in the end. That's what makes this novel so beautiful and so devastating. Dostoevsky captures life in all its messy, painful, and complicated glory. There's no happy ending, no neat resolution, just people trying to navigate a world that's constantly pulling them in the wrong direction. And honestly, that's as real as it gets.